Good evening. I'll let, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I'll let you finish stirring your coffee. All right. Good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:35 p.m. on Monday, July 13th. And I'd like to call the meeting of the Cunningham Township Board to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu?
Here.
Trustee Evans? Trustee Evans? Trustee Hersey?
Here.
Trustee Jones?
Here.
Trustee Cockrell?
Here.
Trustee Wilkin?
Here.
Trustee Quisenberry? Mayor Williams?
Here.
Supervisor Chenoweth?
Present.
Assessor Awana?
Thank you. We may move on. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes from March 9th, April 13th, and May 11th. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Wu, seconded by Jones. Are there any corrections or changes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Those minutes are approved. All right, so there was a slight typo to the agenda items under new business. May I have a motion to correct the resolution numbers on the agenda to add the letter T to note that they are township resolutions? May I have a motion?
I will move that we substitute out the letter T. I'm looking at the resolutions. Does it go right in front of the year?
Yep.
Yeah, so in front of 2006 for one, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to put the T in for.
Second.
Motion made by Wu, seconded by Hersey. Are there any questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Are there any further additions to the agenda? Seeing none, we may move on. At this time, we'll move to public input. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone now to do so, which there are none. So, next, we will have committees to verify bills. So, Supervisor Chenoweth, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Also, I want to welcome Dr. Stephanie Cockrell to our town board. I think this is our first meeting together. We're really excited to have you on board, and thank you so much for your service through the well experience and all you do in the community. Looking forward to doing a orientation to the two new town board members. If I could catch my breath just for like a hot second. We will set up an orientation maybe in August. I'd love to sit down. We can do it separate or together. I'll send you an email and you can decide what you'd like, okay? And just a tour of our facilities and just let you know what's moving. So for the town bills report for May, just want to remind folks we do 2 months behind because we're doing about $400,000 in receipts every month. So in the town fund, we had $69,514.67 in expenditures. In the general assistance fund, we had $334,180.61. Our total expenditures were $403,695.28. Before I talk about our memo, I just want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions about the town bills, which are in your packet.
Hi, thank you, Danielle. So I know that there's a bit of a delay in terms of the board's stipend, but I did notice that Jaya was on this recent month, and I didn't know if that was an error.
Jaya received a stipend in May 20th. I'm going to have to check. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I'll check in relation to her last time. I don't have the date of her exit with me right now. So
Okay, yeah.
I also need to know if I believe it's paying backwards.
Right.
So then the question is, was it was it important that she receive a prorated rather than the full amount? So I'll look into that.
Yeah, because I was thinking if this is paid in May, at the end of May, then you've got May, April, March, and she left in February, so mid-February is when she left.
Yeah, I'd have to look which months we pay because I'm pretty sure we don't pay immediately. But my guess is it should have been a prorated. So
Okay,
I'll check
all right.
into it.
Thank you.
We'll just go ahead for the general assistance fund. I already gave the total. If anyone has any questions about the bills, I'm happy to take them.
I noticed that there's an organization called Friend in Me, and as I was reading through the supervisory memo, you said that it was in partnership for the winter emergency shelter. So I was wondering if you could speak at kind of maybe high level in terms of the amount of support that CTSO did versus Friend in Me.
Yeah, absolutely. So our winter bed expansion program, the operator was Friend in Me. It was all of the staff, other than the administrative staff, all the administration, meaning like receipts and grant reporting, and myself doing special use permits. But there were not staff members allocated to the winter bed expansion until mid to late spring, and then we had two interns and a very small amount of a full-time staff person helping to close out the project, do case management, and help people move in. So Friend and Me was the anywhere between 12 to 16, 18 hours a day, depending on whether or not the temperatures were under a certain level or there was severe weather. So essentially that program came within budget, and we were able to extend it to May 21st. You will see in the last two supervisors' memos significant update on the winter bed emergency shelter, including the numbers served, et cetera. But yes, Friend and Me was the primary contracting agency. We did not have the staff to do a temporary winter bed overnight shelter. We wouldn't, but that's actually been the pinch point in our community for a long time, is having contracted or part-time staff who could work overnight, because our staff work full-time during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the town fund and general assistant fund?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Wilkins, seconded by trustee Jones. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Thank you all, and that motion passes. All right, next we have reports of officers. Danielle, the floor is yours.
Certainly. So I'm going to start with the supervisor's memo, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the living room. I brought a memo to you that gives the latest. It's a fast-moving project, so this is as of today's information. But first, on the supervisor's memo, we start with talking about the public winter emergency shelter. Typically, just for new board members, I'll put some highlights at the top of the memo. I also will bold or put in yellow things that I think the board should be looking at, because it's a long memo that covers every single program. It does allow you to see what the full progress is on a month-to-month basis, but it can be a little overwhelming. I think this one was a total of 15 pages, and that's pretty typical, just giving everything that's moving. So the winter emergency shelter did support 216 male identified residents from November 23rd to May 23rd. And with 100 beds, we were never full with the highest census of 82. There will be no specific winter shelter funding this year from the state. We've been funded through 3 different programs, 3 years, over the last 3 years. That said, we are really trying to address a winter pop-up is not ideal. We don't want people to be out in the street any time of the year. And so our approach is to really try to address both folks who have been in strides for a long period of time to help them move into transitional housing so that it really is truly a low barrier shelter that's supposed to be a very short-term stay. And we have received funding from the state to expand shelter. We are allowed to expand it for anyone in need, but we're focusing on women and LGBTQ plus residents because that's the priority of our continuum, is to have basically to have women and LGBTQ plus have the option of being in a different space. So just wanted to let you know that's what it looks like, and I will be keeping the board up to date in terms of how many people are on the street, which you can tell through the priority list for families, which is listed in every memo, and the number of folks on street outreach. So that's kind of the metric to see how many people are actively outside. With that shelter closing between our township and the city of Champaign, we were either able to reunite folks with friends and family, move folks into housing before the closure, or with that partnership, we were able to house folks. Dr. Parnell was working with folks, particularly with mental health issues, helping them access Rosecrans and other pavilion and other services. And we were working with folks with an exit strategy, seniors, people with permanent supportive housing vouchers and earned income. The good news is that we basically, out of our 14 clients in transitional housing that came out of the shelter, 10 have clear exit plans. We are seeing a delay at Steer Place that's slowing down those exit, but it does look like in the next few months we'll be able to get to 0. With the strategic plan to end homelessness, the continuum of service providers has been working on that plan since February, March timeframe. We are working on it over the summer and are looking to extend the grant. Looking to receive the grant and extend our contract with Homebase. We did note the CSPH, which is our 50-member organization, noted the need for deeper stakeholder input with a focus on racial equity. And then with our staff turnover at CSPH, the executive committee voted to extend that plan. So we're looking at how to make sure we have a solid implementation plan. We will be reaching out to the 2 cities and some of the healthcare providers to do some one-on-one deep dive to make sure that our implementation plan is actionable. Let's see. We plan to launch the final plan with the town hall in late September, possibly early October. General assistance is, we're at 79 active cases. We had 20 new applications submitted in June. That was up 12 in May. I will just say, as I've said many times, summers are hard. We see more rental assistance. We see more general assistance. We see utility shutoffs because bills are so high with the AC. So it's not always a vacation for us at Township or our participants. We are seeing 14 of our general assistance participants are homeless, up from 10 in May. And I'm not gonna go through every single thing. We did we've been doing some outreach around housing options. You can see information about, we have 9 interns, which is great. So we've had a lot of help with doing outreach over the summer. Our Careers in Motion program is going very well. We have 19 participants in this workforce development program, and 14 of them were experiencing homelessness and are now in transitional housing funded by the Housing Authority. Our next cohort, you can see a list of the host sites. Our next cohort will be opening up in a couple of months. We open up application periods 4 times a year. We've expanded our hours at the help desk at Urbana Free Library from 16 to 20 hours so we can serve more people. I will say with the CARES team, we saw the highest number of incoming calls Second highest number, highest number of incoming calls since last July, 2,014 incoming calls in June, which is a lot of calls. Should come visit us sometime. We'll see. We processed 77 applications in June, up from 70 in May for rental assistance. Utility assistance has been, we served 14 households with utility assistance, up from 10 in May. You just see everything's going up in the summer. That's how it goes. With street outreach, we served 52 people. That's up from 49 in May and 29 in April. So we are seeing an increase in residents experiencing street homelessness. And that is primarily, our participants were able to exit generally to housing. Some did not choose to, they chose to move in with friends and family, and sometimes that's a revolving door. But we also have folks, as you can see from the last supervisor's memo, a lot of folks who are experiencing new homelessness in the community are stranded. And so if there is insufficient shelter in the community, you'll see an increase in housing as well due to that. For fiscal year 27, I've shared this before, but our street outreach has narrowed to Urbana only, since we only have a team of 1.5 FTE. We wanted to free up emergency solutions funding for Strides as our only low barrier shelter in the county. That said, I'll be talking a little bit about the HUD NOFO here in a second, where there's opportunity for us to expand our street outreach and housing navigation. Let's see. We have 10 literally homeless families on our priority list as of the end of June. We have quite a few move-ins, move-outs, and move-ins happening, so I expect that number to drop by next month. Let's see. We are seeing about a 4-month stay in our shelter. Our goal has been to move that down from 6 months to 4 months, and that's working well. We have almost no unplanned exits from shelter. We have a 93% success rate in housing people from our family shelter. We helped 13 literally homeless families in June. The average wait time is about 3 months. We've been also working on that. It had bumped up to almost 6 months. So we're moving that down to 3 months. We are seeing an increase. We saw an increase of sharing table requests. So sharing table is, you can call our office if you live in Urbana and are experiencing housing insecurity, and we'll help you. We can do deliveries. We can also help you get to the nearest food pantry. People can also walk in, and we have a hunger relief station. So we saw a 26% increase in 1 month in food. We supported 81 households, and that's after we narrowed our focus to Urbana only. I was seeing more and more calls coming in from Champaign, and I met with the city of Champaign and have held the line, and we're moving all of those calls to Champaign now as of about 2 months ago. So definitely seeing an increase in food insecurity. We do have a food equity and events coordinator, and we're looking to see how we can better increase the programming that we have to do community meals. Let's see, we have 52 plots. We have 61 plots in Solidarity Gardens, and a lot of fresh produce coming out of that and being delivered through our sharing table. And you'll see that we had a number of events, play dates in the park, Juneteenth event with City of Urbana and the Well Experience, and then we had a planned end homelessness workshop. We've been doing a lot of staff development over the summer. We had all of our managers train in leadership training, and a lot of work around capital readiness, living room, supportive services, et cetera. So you'll see that. Happy to answer any questions before I go on to the living room update, just about the general supervisor's memo.
Thank you for that report, Danielle. I did have a quick question. You had made a comment early when you started about things being slower with Steer Place, or Steer Place having,
Yeah.
What's the reasoning around that?
So
you know?
we were actively moving folks into Steer Place who had offers. They had received, they came up on the wait list and received offers. Pretty much all of the guys who are seniors, we had them apply for all senior housing options. And it sounds like there was a hiccup actually with the city of Urbana and construction. And I don't have the details. I was just told by Housing Authority that they had to pause all of the entrances.
That answered my question. All right,
Okay.
thank you. Anyone else? Grace?
Thank you for the updates and work at the township.
We keep it moving.
I want to go back to kind of what you first started with about winter shelter. And could you clarify what is the plan going into this coming winter? And does that have to do with some of the grants up for approval tonight? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so there's township plan and then there's the CSPH plan. So we have 50-member organization. I think there has been a desire to maintain everything that we have, and especially Stratton's, which receive funding from Champaign. And then we're looking to expand our programming, and we're looking to better move folks through the continuum of service providers, the homeless, through our services. So we're doing a deep dive into coordinated entry and the process that people use to get on a list to access housing, and the speed to which they're able to move into housing and transition into permanent housing as well. So our consultant, we do have a small number of emergency beds for a community our size, which I've shared with you all. They've also said that one of the first places to start is to look at transitions and coordinated entry. So we're starting with that to make sure that everyone who's going into our homeless services programs is coming from coordinated entry. They are homeless. We are making use. We have Hope Village coming online. See You at Home has come online. We are expanding our programming. Housing Authority has brought back sponsor-based vouchers for families. So we're in a and we're opening a living room project. So we're in an assessment period. It is extremely exhausting to do pop-up shelters. It's very, very difficult and very hard. And it's become harder and harder to find a location. We almost didn't open this year, and so it's not a sustainable solution. So we're really looking at what if we're able to take 20 women from Stride's shelter and shelter them off-site and open up their capacity and build ours. Where does that leave us, right? So I think we'll have a better understanding where we're at in terms of numbers that need to be served going into the winter in a couple of months as we go through this process. And it's not only Cunningham Townships to address as well. I think it's been really hard to feel like we are the ones holding that piece. And we've asked a lot of people to step up to the plate and do their part as well. So.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that, and something that advocated for in the city budget this year that I don't know where it is, if there is money for that. But yeah, hope that as a community we can come together and we don't find ourselves, as you said, every winter it seems the past many years, kind of like how do we keep people from freezing to death? And like we don't think about that in the summer when we're doing our budgets. So I hope that we can come together as a community and remember to set that money there when it likely will be needed. I appreciate that there's an assessment and trying to get people into transitional housing in other places and move up to permanent stable housing. But in the end, I suspect that as in the years past, we're gonna end up with people on the streets who are gonna need shelter, and that we think about that before it's wintertime.
Yeah, I just want to say that we had to sit down with the mayor and chief administrative officer 2 months ago, and I just had another sit down this week. So I do feel like there's progress with regard to that. And in some ways, folks are waiting on us for the model, at least for our piece in township. I feel like but the ball is in our court, so to speak, on that. And I want to move with data and an understanding of what we should do next. So.
Dr. Stephanie?
Thank you, Danielle. I want to ask, and this may be a thing or may not, but what is within the model that helps families to prevent this from happening again? I am always concerned about building sustainability because often we have the same families in those same situations every year. And what's in the model that helps to prevent those things?
Yeah, so we provide a continuum of services for Urbana-based families and kids in Urbana schools, even if they're right outside of the township borders. We include them as our kids because they go to our schools. And we have a model where any housing insecure family or child can be referred to us. The social workers at the school and at crisis nursery do not need to know whether we have the right program. So we take any family experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness. We start with prevention. We can help a family that's doubled up move into their own housing if they have income. If they don't have income, we can help them get on TANF, and we can provide a bridge grant of income through general assistance for that. And for those who are literally homeless, we provide case management from the moment that they have contact with us and they do an assessment. We case manage them with them while they are on basically our wait list for shelter. Housing Authority has helped us double the size of our shelter, so we have 16 units up from 8, which has helped a lot. Folks move into shelter, they have individualized service plans, they have weekly meetings with case managers. We provide a series of services that are not just housing, could be a series of referrals. There's food stock-ups, there's clothing, there's school supplies, things that folks need. And then we will help them either access market rate, which is rare, or voucher-based housing, or they may access rental assistance, so like a short-term deposit and first month's rent to move in. And then we provide 12 months of what is essentially voluntary aftercare. So we do transitions with them that's usually intensive for about a month and a half to 2 months. And then for 12 months, they can call us for anything that they may have, maybe they're behind or something didn't work out or they're having a utility issue. And then they can always call us if they're in Urbana. So aftercare is 12 months no matter where they moved in the county. And then after that, of course, anyone who's living in Urbana can call us at any time, which is why we have 2,000 calls per month. So that's the model, and I would say that during the aftercare time, we call them twice proactively. So at about 5 to 6 months, and then closer to like 10 to 11 months to see if there's anything they need. And it also helps us collect data on how they're doing and what the success rate was over those timeframes. I would say we are not seeing a lot of returns to our program. We're not seeing a lot of returns to our program. We do allow people to return to the program. We don't say, oh, you're one and done. We do allow folks, and we have, I say rarely, and it tends to be folks who have complex trauma in their past. And then we will increase the kinds of services and wraparound care with those families the second time around. Yeah.
All right, are there any more questions? All right, Supervisor, did you have any more?
Yeah, so I know it's a long agenda. I'm going to try to be brief. I put together a memo of the latest on the living room project. I just wanted to go through this. I know we'll also be talking about some of the property related to this in closed session, but I felt like it's important that it be an open session, the basic public information, so that we can just focus our closed session on property. So essentially, we have just learned just several weeks ago that we were awarded the living room project. It is $1.3 million annually for 3 years. That allows us to provide a crisis respite center. It is peer support. It's voluntary. It's non-clinical. It's meant to be a welcoming, friendly space for people in a self-defined crisis. They can come from anywhere. It's meant to serve the county. We're looking for a place between the two cities in the metro area that we could serve them. Essentially, the living room models across the state, and we've been part of a learning community for several months, they show a 93% deflection rate, meaning the goal is really to provide an alternative that is not the hospital or like an emergency room or even inpatient for somebody who's experiencing a crisis that isn't at that level. We really lack a space that is between everything is okay and you need an emergency room. And so the living room provides that. We do anticipate that we'll need a special use permit in Urbana. We may not need a special use permit in Champaign, working through those pieces. If you go to page 2 on the other side, I just want to point out something in terms of our planning, and I did meet with Administrator White about this as well. Given that we have a 24/7, 365 drop-in space that will open as of October 1, it's really important that it be coordinated with law enforcement, hospitals, and clinics so that we have drop-off and discharge protocols. We have a very good relationship with the patrol staff, especially CIT-trained officers in Urbana. Just want to basically codify that in writing so that we don't have any kind of like cold handoffs and drop-offs, because that can be really dangerous for participants. I'm more concerned than with law enforcement with the hospitals and clinics, because we have a history of having improper discharge protocols, so also working with them on that. I also so that's the concern. The opportunity is that we could integrate our CARE Street Outreach program, could dispatch from the same location as the living room. It would not be funded under the living room, but it could serve as alternative response either through 911 or another number. So we kind of have been building a outreach and response team for a number of years, and the living room kind of supercharges that opportunity because it will be 24/7, 365. So we are, the other strange convergence of events is that HUD has dropped its notice of funding opportunity. We expected a huge cut in funding, and there has been significant cuts in permanent supportive housing for individuals with disabilities. It is of great concern to us. The other side of it is that they also introduced $550,000 in new funding for bonus projects, $50,000 for DV and $500,000 for homeless services, and it's a use it or lose it opportunity that if our community does not go after that funding, we lose it for 3 years. So multiple service providers have been asked to step up to the plate to submit new meaning new to HUD funding bonus projects, and we're one that we've been exploring it, and basically what they want to fund is our street outreach and housing navigation program. Like, it aligns perfectly with what they're asking for. Did not expect that, but that is where we're at. And so we have an opportunity to bring several $100,000 of new funding to Township's street outreach team and housing navigation team. I do want to just say that I think that brings in big opportunities for the alternative response task force, and I've let LEAP know this, and I've let city staff know it as well. I'm still advocating for an open RFP process for that. I'm not asking that it be handed to Township. I think it should be an open RFP. I actually think an open RFP would allow us to have lots of designs at the table, and then we could see how we could actually collaborate and work together to meet the needs in our community. So just wanted to name that piece. We are going to be rapidly, over the next 2 months, adding 17 staff members to Township. They will be direct hires. Most of them will be coming from our Friend and Me collaboration, where we've already have established relationship, all their resumes, and they fit the criteria of the grant. And they've just done an amazing job of running the shelter and have much of the training that is needed for this grant. We will be doing some hiring, and we'll also be hiring for a qualified mental health professional, an LCSW or an RN. So stay tuned for that. I will probably send it to you to send out to your networks, and we'll be posting online. And then we are currently getting credentialed. Our staff who have, through Friend of Me and us, our CTSO do have the lived experience and much of the supervision time, but we do need to go through a credentialing process with the state. So I don't know if Elise, our intern, is present. Just wanted to check to see. I hadn't seen her walk in. Okay, so I just wanted to give props to Elise, our MSW intern. She has been working on a research project that helps inform our program. And then our next steps are finalizing certification, securing our location. We'll expect to have a lease signing in August at some point, furnishing and rehabilitation of the space, and integration with internal and external programs. It is a huge leap forward for us, so I wanted to give you what is it called, the 411 on it, like what we're doing. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this as well. And I will not speak as much during the actual resolutions because I've given you a lot of the context that you need for what we're going to be voting on today, but I'm certainly happy to answer your questions around any of the resolutions as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. Are there any questions? Mary Alice?
Hi, thank you. There used to be a living room project here in the community. Do you know why that is no longer around?
Yeah, so briefly, Rosecrans operated the living room. It was one of the most effective interventions our street outreach team saw. We loved the living room. They went in and out of funding and operations over years, and I was regularly at their door asking, when's the living room going to open again, or when we'll have it back? They let us know this spring that they were not qualified to operate the living room any longer because it cannot be located at a behavioral health center. So the new grant that dropped had provisions that disqualify them, essentially. So I worked with Public Health and Rosecrans, and they wrote letters of support for this living room grant and helped us submit the application, and navigate some of the particularities of a grant like this. So we are basically picking up the torch from them. We will be, contracting with Rosecrans to provide a qualified mental health professional after hours and weekends. And they have a new urgent care center, and we're going to be working very closely to make sure that we're training law enforcement and hospitals and clinics when someone needs to go straight to urgent care versus when someone needs to come to the living room. So we're already talking about those interlinks.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Stephanie?
I really like hearing that about peer supporters. Can you kind of tell me, when you say peer supporters, are they people with lived experience that have kind of experienced some of the same things that the people who will be living there?
Yeah, the whole model is built around peer support, and Cunningham Township has been moving towards a stronger peer support model with our help desk, our digital navigators. We hire, almost all of our staff have lived experience on public aid, and many of our staff have experience with homelessness and housing insecurity. So it fits our model and also fits the living room model. So it will be staffed by the qualified mental health professional and then peer support, certified recovery support specialists who are all they certify their lived experience in mental health, substance abuse, or other crises like homelessness. And they have to have 2,000 hours of supervision. So it's people with experience, right, in the field. And then we have peer support workers who do not need that experience. They just need a particular kind of training that we're providing. And we started that training last week, the trainings that are needed last week for our CRSSs, and we'll be hiring on our peer support workers in August and September. And we will have a couple of openings. I think last I checked, we have 4 openings for peer support workers. So if there's anyone, I will also put that as a public open hire, but I can let the council and town board know that as well, and you can refer people to us.
Okay, thank you. So my concern is always when I love working with peer supporters, and I have to be very concerned that peer supporters are not just getting mental health training, but also mental health support. Yes. Because it is very easy to kind of be re-traumatized by the trauma that being connected to things. So what's the mental health support that is being, not just the training, but also mental health support that's being provided to peer supporters to make sure that it doesn't roll them back while they're trying to help someone else?
Absolutely. So they will be overseen by the qualified mental health professional who can provide some of that supervision support. But we also have, one of the reasons we're bringing on the staff as Cunningham Township employees is because of the full range of benefits. We have a great healthcare benefit, and all mental health copays are covered under our wellness benefit. So anyone working at Cunningham Township has zero out-of-pocket expenses, up to $500 a year in mental health copays. And that allows, and they're strongly encouraged, not mandated, but strongly encouraged to access that support so that they are addressing and it's not just within the living room, but honestly in every aspect of township, secondary trauma is an issue. We also have trainings in de-escalation, emotional regulation, which includes personal emotional regulation, and secondary trauma. Karen Sims has been our trainer, but we have several other trainers who have come in to help us address secondary trauma. We do have situations where if someone, if an employee had a traumatic incident or a situation, we're very flexible in terms of providing them that time off. We have good PTO processes. We have 35-hour work weeks because the work we're doing is very, very hard. And so we try to set up a workspace, a framing for our workforce that supports them through those difficult situations.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, now thank you, Supervisor Chenoweth as well. Now we will move on to new business. The first item is resolution number T 2026-07-011R, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a grant agreement with the state of Illinois for rapid rehousing. Danielle?
Yeah, these are all of our grant renewals. So the first one is for rapid rehousing. The second one is, and that is for folks who are literally homeless to move into independent housing with a subsidy that steps down over time. The second one is emergency transitional housing that supports our family shelter and other shelter work. And then the living room project you'll see there as well, which I just covered. And then the Illinois Homeless Response Collaborative, which is our strategic planning work. Yeah, so those are the 4 grants that are before us, and all of the living room is new, but the other 3 are renewals.
All right, are there any additional questions? Go ahead, Sharice.
So right now, you don't have a physical place for the living room?
Correct.
Okay,
We do.
so the grant will help you finance a space?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to understand. And you're trying to find a place for the living room that's in between Champaign and Urbana, or it's
It's in the metro area, somewhere located in the metro area.
in the metro area? Okay, all right, thank you.
Grace?
Thank you. Thanks again for the information and important work here. I was trying to find the budget page here in all these contracts, but there was a lot for staff for a lot of these, which I think makes sense for a lot where it's case management and you have staff for these times. And I was wondering if you could explain for rapid rehousing, is that more service-based and less direct financial assistance-based?
No, so rapid rehousing is actually mostly rent and utilities. There's only 1 full-time staff member funded under that program. And there's 9 units that they support. For emergency and transitional housing, that is more case intensive, and it tends to be because the meetings are weekly, whereas in rapid rehousing, it tends to be every other week to monthly. It's more intensive at the beginning. The living room project is almost entirely staff.
All right, are there any other questions? Mary Alice?
So, looking at the deliverables for this one, it says 80% of households will have move-in date within 30 days of start date. That's not move-in date from once they move into the shelter. They don't have to be, 80% of the households don't have to be out within 30 days.
No, so I think you're referring to the rapid rehousing grant. As soon as someone is entered into the program, they have 30 days to find a location. and move into housing, which is a very short turnaround time. So what we do is we pre-screen folks. We do basically have referrals from coordinated entry. We screen folks, we do readiness with them, and then we enter them into the program funded through the grant when it's like, go, and you got 30 days to find a space. As I kind of shared with the town board before, is we've been really focusing on cultivating our relationships with landlords. We had a landlord event last October, which was phenomenal. We had 20 landlords we've developed relationships with. We will work with all landlords who pass inspection, but we were specifically looking, because we've had some issues of predatory landlords, looking at folks who could come to an in-person event, and we could meet them and get to know them. And so we have not had problems since then moving folks into housing through our program, and it's because they're case managed. It's actually a big part of why landlords are willing to work with us, because they know what our case management looks like. And we had landlords testify to other landlords at our event what it was like to work with Cunningham Township and how we resolve conflicts and get to success. So yeah, the 80% is, we have a higher rate than that, but that's the minimum that the state requires to move into housing. And that is a tricky thing to do unless you have relationships with landlords.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve Resolution T 2026-07011R?
I'll make a motion to move resolution number T 2026-07011R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a grant agreement with the state of Illinois for rapid rehousing.
Oh,
Second.
All right, motion made by Jones, seconded by Sharice. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey, Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkham.
Yes.
Thank you, that motion passes. The next item is resolution number T 2026-0712R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a grant agreement with the state of Illinois for emergency transitional housing. Danielle, the floor is yours.
I think I've spoken to all of the resolutions up and through, through D. And you may even be able to take those three in omnibus fashion. I'm not sure if the clerk may be able to direct you on that.
An omnibus would be possible. I mean, it would reduce the amount of motions you make by one, so it could be nice.
All right. All right, well, if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve an omnibus resolution number T 2026-07-12R, as well as T 2026-07-13R, and T 2026-07-14R. At this time,
I'll move that we omnibus all the ones that the mayor said.
all right,
Second.
moved by Wu, seconded by Wilkin. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin.
Yes.
And those motions pass. Thank you. I like the way y'all do business
I
today.
would like to make a motion that we approve the omnibus now, because we first had to,
Go
we had
for
to
it.
first merge them. Now we got to approve them.
Motion made by Wu to approve the omnibus. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Sharice. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all, and that passes. All right, the next item is resolution number T 2026-07-15R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Home Base on behalf of the continuum of service providers to the homeless. Supervisor Danielle.
Just briefly, this would allow Home Base to continue working through the summer to get to the final strategic plan and an implementation plan. Well, I may be coming back to you with another contract for home base. We do have additional dollars for consultant, but CSPH has not determined how we want to proceed. We just want to get to the end of the strategic plan to decide our next steps.
All right, are there any questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve resolution number T 2026-07015R?
I make a motion to move resolution number number T 2026-0715R. Resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Home Base on behalf of the continuum of service providers to the homeless.
Second.
Motion made by Jones, seconded by Wilkin. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
All right, that passes. Thank you. The next item is resolution number T 2026-0716R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Lauterbach and Amen for audit services, FY 26 to 2028. Supervisor Chenoweth.
This would allow us to do our audit for the next 3 years, which is a requirement for our grant. And we're looking to start at $13,500 for the first year, and it ends at $14,500 for the third year.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve resolution T 2026-07016R?
I move to approve resolution number T 2026-07-016R, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Lauterbach and Amen for audit services FY 26 through 28.
Second.
All right, motion made by Sharice, seconded by Verdell. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. All right, next. The next item is resolution number T 2026-0717R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Management Center for Staffing Training, FY 2027. Supervisor Chenoweth.
Yeah, so we had all of our supervisory staff go through training that was funded through a grant with for CSPH, and we are now looking to, with our own dollars, fund training for our supervisees that originally was scheduled for July 28th, but we're asking to push that back to September because we want the entire living room staff to be included. We can train up to 40 staff, and we'll have about that many supervisees at that time. This will be really important to get everyone on board with the Management Center framework that we use for our leadership training as well as for our staff members. And we are asking for in-person training. We find that engagement and retention by staff is much better with in-person training than online training. And given that we're working with 40, we think it's worth the $2,400 to fly the trainer here to do that work. So I'm just asking you to approve that training with the Management Center.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve resolution T 2026-0717R?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Wu, seconded by Jones. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
All right, thank you all, and that motion passes. All right, with no further resolutions, the next item is a closed session to discuss property per 5 ILCS 120-2C5. Can I get a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by seconded. or moved by Wu, seconded by Hersey. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That passes. For the public, we are now going to enter into closed session and return to council chambers before adjournment, moving to city council. Thank you.
Upstairs. It is warmer over there.
Can't be out here stinking.
All right, we are back from closed session. Can I get a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Wu, seconded by Jones. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Cockrell,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin.
Yes.
All right, thank you all. With no further business before the Township Board, this meeting is adjourned. We will now be, we will move, well, actually, we'll take a quick little 5 minutes, and we'll move into our city council meeting. Thank you.
Get the bubble guts. Ooh.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is Monday, July 13th. The time is now 8:02. I call to order the regular meeting of the Urbana City Council. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu,
Here?
Councilmember Evans, Councilmember Evans, Councilmember Hersey,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Here.
Councilmember Wilkin,
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry, Mayor Williams.
Here. All right, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes, we have the minutes from May 18th, 2026, Committee of the Whole. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion made by Hersey, seconded by Wu. Are there any changes? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, all opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Next, we have additions to agenda. Are there any additions? Good. Seeing none, we will move on to presentations and public input. At this time, we will go ahead and have public input. Members of the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and city. You have 3 minutes to speak. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Council. It's me again. Sorry. My name is Adani Sanchez. I'm a resident of Champaign and a co-lead of Curbanism Club. First off, I'd like to congratulate Urbana on the multiple affordable housing developments that were announced last week on Silver Street and the future development with LIHTC. I'm very excited to hear about adding more housing in Urbana. I'm excited about all of it. So I'm really looking forward to ways that we can continue to work together so that we can encourage even more affordable housing across our communities, all of our communities. I speak on behalf of Curbanism Club when I ask Council to please vote yes on this proposal for 32 new homes in downtown Urbana because it would provide additional housing options that connect to transit, local businesses, and it's going to be using the infrastructure that already exists, which we think is really important use of investments that y'all have already made. Please consider the current residents looking to stay in Urbana. What is the cost of choosing not to build? What is the cost of losing residents who cannot find a home that fits their needs? Please vote yes for more homes and more neighbors in downtown Urbana. Thank you so much for your consideration and all the time you spent on this. Thanks.
Good evening. Again, my name is Gabriel. Live in Ward 2. So I just want to second everything that Adani said. And I do want to mention that you're going to be, in your consent agenda, you're going to be voting on an ordinance that you don't, some of you don't want to, but know that you have to pass. And ordinances like these, you know, are questionably in violation of, you know, home rule. You can make an argument. Here's the thing. I love home rule. I believe that these arguments need to be at the local level. So that's why I'm saying at the local level, do the right thing and let's build more housing in Urbana where it's needed, because this year, unfortunately, the Build Act didn't pass. We don't know what's going to happen next year, and you know, eventually, the way that the state, unless something happens at the state legislature, eventually there is going to be a version of the Build Act where you will be forced to readdress these restrictive zoning ordinances, which, you know, are nothing more than, I would say, like a PC form of redlining. So let's do the right thing at the local level so we're not forced to do it because the state is telling us to do it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jared Fritz, longtime Champaign and Urbana resident. I'll also keep this short. I really appreciated Supervisor Danielle's presentation tonight, and I think something I've been thinking a lot with this PUD application is that, especially on housing, but a lot of things with the city, we need to be a yes and community. We need to say, yes, we need to better support our homeless population. Yes, we need more beds. Yes, we need to improve the wait time for families who are currently waiting 3 to 6 months who are on the street and do not have homes. We need to do all of that, and we need to build more housing. and we need a lot of other things. So I think I don't want a housing development, a project like this, to be seen as, is this specifically affordable housing or not? How does all things work? We need to be thinking holistically and be approaching all these things with a yes and approach, because the current status quo is not cutting it for our community. I know some folks have given comment and presentations on the stickiness and rent and things like that. And Ms. Lindhoff's presentation a few weeks ago cited a few different numbers, including, back in 2023, the rent price increase was around 10 or 11% in our community, and this past year was something like 5.4% in September, above market average. And that's not good. That's not what we want to see. We don't want to see those rents increase, and they're sticky in part because there's not enough housing. So if we can continue to increase the amount of housing, that is going to help us. She also cited the fact that, if we can increase the vacancy rate, which we would do through increasing the housing supply, we would maybe see a 1%, 2%, 3% reduction in rents, and she cited that as, that's not very much of a decrease, but comparing that to a 5 or a 10% increase, that sounds really good to me. So I think that's like a very compelling reason why housing supply does matter. And when the housing vacancies are very low, that is when rent is really sticky. If we can start to bump up the vacancy rate just a little bit, we'll start to see a little bit of ease in the market and see some of those benefits, so that we don't have to see so many families and so many members of our community going without housing. And last thing I'll say is just that, we want to, I'll speak for myself, I'll speak for Curbinism, but I think a lot of people that have spoken that we want to see actual affordable housing for homeless population, for low-income folks, for middle-income folks. We want to see all of that, and one really good way to do that is just to say yes to more housing. So say yes to more housing, say yes to continue to support the township, say yes to all these things that our community needs. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Trainer. I live at 201 North McCullough. This 32-unit, 42-bed, if built, will be right across the street from me. I'm at the corner of McCullough and Stoughton, gray farmhouse, 1897. Slept with my windows open last night. If this goes through, I'll hear the 32 air conditioning units all summer long. You have a picture of it somewhere with MTD bus on it. There's no room for a bus on McCullough. When they replaced the bridge on Springfield and rerouted traffic down McCullough, buses would not fit. Phillips Rec Center has 35 parking spaces plus parking on the street. On Thursday night, there's a cooking class. After it gets out, Stoughton, it's gridlocked. There is no way in or out for 10 or 15 minutes. The entrance to this is runs right into Stoughton and will only get worse. The two buildings that will be torn down are low-cost housing. The building on the corner of Main and McCullough has never looked better. The green space has empty lots and could be used as part of the Boneyard Creek project. The building itself doesn't really fit into the neighborhood. The new apartments on Elm and Collier, if you've ever seen them, use those as a guide. The brown brutalist on Springfield and Collier doesn't fit in either. There are several other locations for a building this size. We've talked about them again and again. You all live in R2, right? Just guessing so. Be careful. You want to wake up to this, it's big. It's an R5. It doesn't fit in. It tears down low-cost housing. It takes out green space that could be expanded since it's so close to the Phillips Rec Center. Thank you.
I'm Carolyn Baxley. I live at 510 West Main. You've already heard in the last few weeks from several homeowners on Main Street who have lived in our neighborhood for decades, as well as concerned homeowners all over West Urbana who've sent in emails and letters. Our street has been zoned single family for several years, and we have an expectation that it will remain so. I know everyone on this council lives in either R1, R2, or R3. So how would you feel if this was going to go in next to you or in the next block from you? This planned unit development in no way meets the criteria for bypassing our zoning. there is no public benefit, and it will displace several African-American low-income families for no reason other than profit to the developer. It has been clearly demonstrated that the trickle-down effect of lower rents in existing buildings and more affordable housing that happens in larger cities does not happen here, ever. So please don't be swayed by that argument, which, by the way, has come primarily from speakers who don't even live in Urbana. Main Street from the 400 block westward is not an extension of downtown. Please vote no tonight and send a clear message that developers need to stay within the confines of our existing zoning ordinance. To allow this project would set a terrible precedent that will eventually destroy what the American Planning Association has designated one of America's great neighborhoods. You have a legal obligation to uphold the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan of the city of Urbana. You took an oath to do so when you were sworn in, and I'm asking you tonight to vote no.
I'm Phyllis Williams. I live at 810 West Main in Urbana. Council members, I urge you to separate the preliminary approval of the Main Street PUD from the final approval and reclaim your opportunity for meaningful input on this development. The exact conditions of the Boneyard access, dedication, or easement have not been discussed in council meetings. The council has not discussed the establishment of the special fund for the Boneyard pathway, which would hold the $1 per square foot assessment. Bill Rose voiced concern over the small amount this assessment would yield and the need for government grants combined with seed money from the city to make the green pathway a reality. Commissioner Rose acknowledged the stream maintenance is needed already. The city is only gaining access it already has. By combining the preliminary and the final approvals in one push to the council, the developers and staff have deprived you of the opportunity to voice your input on site plan and design. Would you have chosen the welcoming grass shoulders along Main Street, or chosen one of the images submitted by Dennis Roberts as a more fitting design? Would you have cared as much about this site as you did about the Vine Street development at your own doorstep, which was sent back for design work? Even the state Prairie Street PUD in Champaign was responsive to the Prairie Street neighbors in altering curb cuts and setbacks for the townhouse portion. You have not seen a plan which informs you as to the trees to be removed and the buffer on the east side of the property abutting the owner-occupied R2 property at 409 West Main, which is now an island of R2. Staff has not addressed leaving these new residents walled off from their neighborhood, but you should care. By combining the preliminary and final approval with the need to upzone, the added 12-foot height, and FAR of 1 at the April 16th Plan Commission, which was supposed to only approve the Creekway permit, the public was denied early stage input. Many pieces of this proposal were seemingly aligned before the public hearing. Please reclaim your oversight.
All right, are there any other members? Seeing none, we have a few emails. I'll kick it off to be read into the record. Dear council members and Mayor Williams, it's all about the law. It's land use law that requires cities to adhere to their zoning code. This is how you must determine the legal viability of the ordinance before you. The question before you is not, will the PUD provide more housing, but rather you intend to adhere to Urbana zoning law. All 4 properties in this proposal are zoned R2. To increase the density from R2 to R5, the developer have to provide a genuine public benefit. Giving the city a 20-foot wide easement behind 4 houses along the Boneyard Creek is not a public benefit. Urbana can ill afford to maintain its sidewalks, much less construct and maintain a roughly 200-foot trailway to nowhere. Further, a modest donation to a Boneyard Improvement Fund will hardly offset potential costs of this trailway to nowhere. This PUD is a clear violation of land use law. Approving this PUD has nothing to do with providing affordable housing. However, Much needed, this project will not encourage affordable housing, as has been repeatedly demonstrated by long-term members of the community who have worked with the homeless, those in need of affordable housing, and the rental market. Approving this PUD has nothing to further the health of Urbana's housing market. Urbana already has an excessive percentage of rentals to owner-occupieds. This has been endlessly documented by long-term residents of Urbana who have decades of experience in the local rental market. To cite once again, according to the most recent U.S. Census Bureau data, the rental vacancy rate in Urbana is 12%, and 63% of housing units in the city are rental. This is twice the percentage statewide. While Urbana does need affordable housing, it does not need more high-density housing. As a final comment, the process of combining both the preliminary and final review in one ordinance has been botched from the start. In past years, whenever a developer proposed a PUD project on the east side of Lincoln, the public was involved. City staff organized meetings between the developer and the residents before anything went before the Plan Commission. The current project emerged in its entirety and was presented to City Council as a done deal with minimal public input. It was too late to do anything to seriously mitigate the unwieldiness and magnitude of the proposed building. It's been a PR disaster. Please vote responsibly and legally. Thank you for your consideration, Liz Cartman of Urbana. Next is, please read into the record. Please vote no on the PUD on Main Street. It is very short-sighted to think this building will help the housing crisis. It will not. What will is federal, state, and local funding of affordable housing, mental health funding, $20 an hour minimum wage, universal health care for all, etc. The disparity of wealth and greed are the poison of our society. Meanwhile, the proposed Main Street build is an inappropriate building for the neighborhood. Also, where will the current occupants of the houses go? Will they then become homeless? We do not need more student housing, townhomes, duplexes, or fourplexes. Or more for long-term residents would be more worthwhile. High regards, Louis Steinberg. Verdell.
Dear City Council, please accept these comments for the record and read them during the meeting. I am a resident of Ward 3, and I urge you to support ordinance number 2026-05013. I am not asking for your support because this development is perfect or because it will solve every housing need in our city. It will not end our housing shortage, remake the rental market, or perform sorcery. What this ordinance does is simple and necessary. It allows needed homes to be built on land that is, for the most part, vacant and too expensive to use for many other practical purposes. I ask for your support because this ordinance is a necessary step towards alleviating the chronic housing shortage in Urbana and the surrounding area. When housing is scarce, those with more resources will always outcompete with those with less, even when subsidies are involved. Vouchers lose power when everyone is competing for the same limited inventory. Rent remains high when landlords face little competition. Housing quality also suffers when landlords do not have to compete for tenants. I have loved working and living in Urbana for years. One thing I deeply regret is when the City Council appears to dismiss the concerns of its staff and residents in favor of well-to-do constituents in specific neighborhoods, often relying on flimsy information that basic fact-checking would expose. Urbana's landed gentry should not be given control of city government, and neither should any corporation. Consider the facts. An apartment building on Central Avenue was converted into permanent housing for formerly homeless individuals with disabilities, using project-based vouchers to keep rents affordable. Residents began moving in late last year. Affordable housing is being created in this neighborhood and in this city. At the same time, former residents of that property were displaced and had to find new accommodations. That is precisely why we need more homes overall. Furthermore, half of the proposed PUD site consists of vacant lots. These are not public green spaces, they are private property. The immediate surrounding area already includes diverse housing types, from the element apartment building to duplexes and converted single-family homes for rent. This in addition to the single-family homes, or more accurately, manors, farther down Main Street. During multiple committee of the whole and city council meetings, I have heard fear, defamation, revisionist history, and what appears to be naked exclusion disguised as concern for the poor. I urge the council to develop a serious plan to build more housing for the rich, the poor, the middle class, and everyone in between. Please rely on the data provided by staff and your hired experts to create real policy rather than acting as a government HOA for the privileged in Urbana. The council needs to stand on business and begin working with city staff on a serious housing plan that includes both market rate and affordable housing. This council has shown that it can devote multiple meetings over many months to a police surveillance ordinance. If budgets are moral documents, then this council's calendar should be held to the same standard, unless you want to be painted as the Urbana. We will finish the rest. We'll put the full document into the public records.
Grace.
There's some others that came in maybe since printing. G. Brewster, I don't think anyone read that one, right? Okay. Dear City Council, please accept these comments for the record and read them during the meeting. I'm a resident of Ward 3 and I urge you to support Ordinance 2023-05013. This isn't what you just read, right? No, okay. Okay, sorry. I'm not asking for your support. It is? Okay, okay. How about Cyrus Dochow? That one just came in at 7:08. Okay, sorry for the confusion. Reading a new one. You got the timer, clerk. Thank you. Please read out loud during the public comment period. Dear Mayor and members of the City Council, I'm writing today to comment on the proposed PUD at 413 to 419 West Main Street. The proposed site is an excellent opportunity for multi-unit housing. Its location, size, and unusual shape are ideal conditions for growth between downtown and campus. I fully support multi-unit housing on the site. There are, however, several aspects of the proposed design that should cause us all to pause and ask, what kind of housing or urbanism does our city deserve? I hope that in your discussion tonight, you will address the qualities of the urban environment this project would produce and how these qualities are in conflict with the rationale offered by the developer and the city's stated ambition to advance a healthy, clean, and green community. I strongly encourage the council to require 2 changes as conditions of the approval. 1, removal of all parking with the exception of 2 federally mandated accessible spaces. 2, tree preservation plan that protects all mature, healthy trees on the site. Regarding condition 1, the fact that half the site is given to parking is extraordinarily destructive from an ecological and urban design perspective. Creating impervious area and diverting storm runoff is a far less desirable outcome than allowing it to soak into the soil. From an urban design perspective, the 2 access points to the parking will fragment the pedestrian way and turn the site into an island. A PUD is not required to conform to the parking requirements of R5 zoning. 27 parking spaces in such close proximity to transit, downtown, and campus for a tenant group that excludes families is gratuitous. Furthermore, eliminating parking would be consistent with the spirit of people over parking adopted by the council just last week. Regarding condition number 2, the developer's weak assurances that they will maintain as many mature trees as feasible undervalues the importance of mature trees in Urbana and cities in general. Trees provide shade, cooling, and habitats. They offer scale and variety in contrast to the buildings and seasons. Mature trees are the most prized and fragile elements of Urbana's environment and must be protected. It is telling that no landscape plan was submitted with this application. Removing the parking lot and protecting the trees may very well return the design team to the drawing board. It might also offer the possibility to provide more units and more integrated project on a site unconstrained by surface parking. A relatively short delay would bring significant benefits over the long term. Buildings are permanent and there is one chance to get this project right. I strongly encourage the council to debate the qualities and conditions of the project for the greatest number. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Cyrus Dochow.
All right, are there any other emails? All right, thank you for all the members of the public who spoke today and individuals who sent in the emails. All right, we will now have a presentation sponsored by Councilmember Evans and Wilkin, I'm sorry. Will the presenters please step to the table? Sure that the microphones are turned on. Speaking to the mic, state your name and your reason for being here.
Testing.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Mangles. I am a local organizer with Lift the Ban campaign.
My name is Yuri Berry. I'm a resident of Urbana, and I'm concerned about how expensive housing is getting.
Today we'll be talking about addressing the housing crisis in Urbana and beyond. And I'll go over a brief agenda. The first part is the problem, which rent is too high. We'll talk about the origins of the problem. We'll also address the dire consequences, which is evictions and homelessness. We will also discuss solutions to the problem, and then conclude and have some time for questions and discussion afterwards.
All right, so when we talk about rent being too high, what exactly do we mean? The Department of Housing and Urban Development defines being rent burdened as when your rent costs more than 30% of your income. So if more than 3 out of $10 you earn goes to your housing, you are considered rent burdened. Based on this definition, nearly half of renter households in Champaign County are considered rent burdened. That's a stat published by the Housing Authority of Champaign County and reiterated in the City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium's annual action report in fiscal year 24-25. Now, what does this look like if we zoom out and use household income data from the Senate district that we are in? The median, so this is the middle income, household income is about $32K a year or $2,600 a month. The median rent is just a little over $1,000. So if you are right in the middle of the income scale and you're right in the middle of how much you pay for rent, you're still paying 37.7% of your income, 7% above that 30% threshold. And of course, that's just for the middle income earners. If we look at the lower end of the income scale, we can see just how drastic this problem is. A minimum wage worker would need to work about 70 hours a week to afford a typical one-bedroom apartment, which is nearly 2 full-time jobs, and that is almost impossible for many people.
Right. So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now that we've established the scale of this problem, we need to talk about how did we get here. Of course, we all understand that housing is a need that everybody has. As human beings, we must be housed to survive. So why is it that so many people are having such a hard time being housed? There are, of course, many reasons. This is quite a large and complicated problem. For the purposes of this presentation, we want to take aim at the institutional investors that are buying up entire neighborhoods, entire apartment blocks, raising rents, and fundamentally abusing their ability as landlords in an inequitable relationship. When tenants lose housing, they lose where they live, they lose their ability to sustain themselves. For the corporations that are buying these houses, they're just losing cash flow on a balance sheet. It's a fundamentally skewed relationship. And at the head of these forces is, of course, real estate lobbies that are using the money that they get from us tenants to lobby for a political climate that is favorable to their interests and opposed to ours.
So when we look at a manifestation of the problem in specific, we get into the ban, right? I said I'm with Lift the Ban, so I will get into the ban in question. Excuse me. The ban refers to the 1997 Illinois Rent Control Preemption Act, which forbids any sort of rent control at the statewide level of Illinois. This was advocated for by American Legislative Exchange Council, which has similarly advocated for basically rent control bans in 32 other states. And the real estate lobby continues to fight hard every year to ensure this 1997 law stays in effect, essentially talking to legislators, telling them that you can't, lift the ban on rent control, otherwise bad things will happen, making sure that their lobby goes hard as possible on this issue because it is fundamentally a housing access issue. Continuing on to evictions and homelessness, this is a dire consequence of the problem that we see in housing affordability. When tenants cannot afford rent, they end up doubling up with their family or a friend, or they might be evicted and end up on the street. And so we have data from 2016 that suggests that over 56,000 people statewide in that year alone were evicted. In Champaign County, this was over 1,000 people. still. So we know that the problem must still exist 10 years later because it's only gotten worse since 2016, as you know. Homelessness statistics in Illinois in 2024 were 25,800 people without shelter in Illinois, and 165,000 people nearly doubled up. So that alone is a sobering statistic to keep in mind as we continue on throughout our presentation. And one of the proposed solutions to the problem, in fact, one that we've heard quite frequently tonight, is whether to build more. Now, many people think that if more housing is built, this will automatically take care of the affordability problem. There is more nuance to this, I think, based on statistics that we see. So based on a statistic between 1990 and 2017 from a Harvard University study, in the US alone, between those years, 11 million new dwellings were built in the US, but the number of affordable dwellings decreased by 4 million. So if building alone was to solve the problem, then theoretically that should have been solved by building 11 million more new dwellings, right? But the problem is that because there is no rent cap, there's nothing stopping those landlords from raising the rent continuously until it is no longer affordable, especially for states like Illinois, which have no form of rent control and no protection for tenants to keep landlords from raising the rent as much as they want, literally. And so when we talk about solutions to the problem, we have a lot of options. There are a lot of good ways to solve this problem. Some of them are listed on the screen here for you to see. I won't have time to get into all of them due to time constraints, but they include things like community land trusts, right, taxing people with second homes, changing zoning laws, and rehabilitating old structures to make more housing, which I know the mayor has done on South Philo Road. So I commend the council and the mayor for, you know, working at these solutions from a multifaceted angle. It also includes things like taking care of unhoused people and removing bad actors from the real estate scene entirely. If landlords are running slums, they shouldn't be allowed to operate in our community, simply put. But ultimately, rent control and tenant rights could be a piece of the puzzle, but we do not believe it is necessary to invest in every possible solution. Having multiple avenues for creating affordable housing is better than putting all your eggs in one basket, so it's better to attack a problem from multiple angles. One part of the solution could be rent control. As I mentioned, I work for Lift the Ban, and Lift the Ban is a coalition which is advocating for lifting the ban on rent control. So 8 states and districts in the United States currently have rent control, and as I mentioned, 33 states have a ban. No state thus far has successfully lifted the ban on rent control yet, but Lift the Ban legislation would allow local municipalities to hold a referendum vote on whether to lift the ban on rent control. It would not automatically lift the ban statewide, nor would it institute rent control automatically statewide. It would allow municipalities to vote on said subject. Lastly, there are various ways that rent control can operate. So, for example, you could have a rent board with tenants and homeowners. For example, you could also have annual rates fixed to inflation. So if you have 3% inflation, have rent control at 3%. You can also create rent justification, which means that high costs that the landlord incurs can create exemptions. Typical exemption examples would include things like new constructions, building past a certain date, owner-occupied buildings, or asbestos rehabilitation, ultimately creating accommodations so that these places are livable and not slums. Ultimately, we also talk about tenant rights at Lift the Ban. And I won't have much time to focus on this, but the legislation that we've proposed in the past has tried to universalize statewide the Chicago Tenant Bill of Rights, which includes things like prohibiting lockouts, capping late fees, giving 60 days notice for not renewing your lease. Landlords must repair essential services within 14 days, things that should be universalized but are not yet for Illinois tenants. In conclusion, To ensure affordable housing, we can move forward with any of the solutions we've shared, including lifting the statewide ban on rent control and fighting for tenant rights. But it's important to assure Urbana residents that they can afford their housing. So let's continue working together toward that end. Thank you so much for your time, and we'd love to open up the floor for any thoughts and questions that the council has to share.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead. Steph.
Why is this important to you?
That's a great question. It's important to me because I have a master's degree from Illinois State University, and in 2024, I was working 3 jobs to make sure that I could afford my rent and food, and I was barely able to afford food. I had to go to the food bank. I was living in Normal. The rent was really high. I was living in a single person unit, and I just became so incredibly depressed that I had to bring myself to the mental health hospital so that I would survive. It's incredibly demoralizing to know that you spent your whole life on an education that can't even pay you a living wage, and you can barely afford your rent. You can't even afford your food, because if you have to choose between rent and food, you choose rent. If it can be an issue for me, imagine how much of a problem it is for people who don't have access to things like master's degrees. It's so much worse than we think. It's a problem. It's very important to me.
This topic is important to me because I previously experienced homelessness. Back in 2022, I had to move out of my parents' house due to hostile living conditions, and I discovered, to my dismay, how incredibly difficult and extremely expensive it is to find anywhere to live. Back then, I was living in the town of Elgin. To find like not even a 1-bedroom apartment, but to find just 1 bedroom in somebody else's house was running nearly $1,000 a month. And of course, there were basically no protections for tenants. Anywhere that was less than that had extremely onerous requirements, such as credit checks or having somebody to co-sign with you, which was simply not resources available to me. I was living out of my car. I was crashing at friends' places. This was a living condition that I had to deal with for months. Luckily, I moved here to Urbana with friends of mine. I was attending the University of Illinois. I was able to find better living accommodations. And this is a pressing issue more than ever as we discuss the statistics. This is an issue that, in fact, that impacts pretty much most people, most renters. And it's an issue that's getting worse. And we see it every day. We saw it with Danielle Shenowitz's presentation. This is an issue that affects thousands of people. And we're just trying to do something about it.
All right, thank you. Are there any more questions? Comment. Sharice, go for it.
Thank you for your presentation. I can kind of sympathize with your reasoning for this. I lived in California, which did have rent control, which is why I also pushed to lift the ban on rent control, because I lived in a situation, or had a single apartment, and I was fortunate to be able to live there for a couple of decades, actually, but only because I could not find any other affordable housing. It was the most affordable housing I could find at the time. No one wants to live in a 1-room apartment for 20 years. But that's kind of the situation I was in. So what I want to understand is, let's say the lift the ban thing doesn't work. What else could one do, or could a city do? I know I've listened to some stuff on NPR about restrictive deeds that could be developed with the developer. What else do you have in mind?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to go back to one of the previous slides that had all the possible solutions. And this is not a comprehensive list. It's simply top of mind. So this includes things like community land trusts, which in a second I'll let Erie speak on as well, because you know a bit more about that. I did also mention rehabilitating buildings in order to assure that they have housing so that they're not demolished, which the council and mayor have started doing with South Philo Road properties. I've also mentioned, taxing people with second homes. So this is something that, for example, Mayor Mamdani, we see in New York City doing. They were also able to institute a rent freeze for all of their tenants there. So I think that is different based on the state, because New York obviously has different rent control laws than Illinois. But having said that, we can still fight for tenant rights at the local level, and it's actually incredibly important to me that we do, because if landlords do the kind of things that I know they do to a tenant, and there is no solid tenant union in the area, there is no way to fight back unless it is by yourself, especially if you live alone. Maybe you have no family in the area, maybe you don't have resources for a lawyer. It is unfortunately common that there is nothing one can do without collective resources and organizing amongst tenants, frankly. So creating an atmosphere where it would be easier for tenants to unionize would be, quite frankly, amazing. I think also, like, making sure that there are consequences for these landlords that are running terrible properties. They're not in good condition. They have mice, they have building codes that are far out of date. And I know that the city inspector for these properties is already overwhelmed with the work, because I've spoken with Chris Evans about this exact issue. So resourcing the people that are holding these landlords accountable, because there is no one holding these landlords accountable for the moment, especially not without rent control. But there's things that we could do locally. And I know Urbana has actually better tenant rights than Champaign, because I work in the sphere of housing. So there is something to be commended for Urbana advocating more for tenant rights. And I think as long as we continue doing that, and we continue, inspecting properties and saying, maybe these landlords not only should pay a fee, but there should be actual business consequences for them if they're running out these places, especially out-of-state actors that are simply just not accountable to their residents at all. Like, we can't have unlivable properties. That's part of the problem as well. Not just the price of rent, but the conditions we're living in are so terrible. An example being Town and Country Apartments in Urbana, where I know a friend of mine just had their rent increased by 40%, from $1,000 a month to $1,400 a month. And there's mice in those apartments. There's the fire extinguisher boxes that we saw there when we were canvassing were broken open. And I know for a fact that the city inspector hasn't had the resources to go inspect those, because it's not in the public documents that are published on Urbana City websites. So more resources just for holding these people accountable, because they are business people. They run on the basis of profit. That is their pure incentive. It is my incentive to prioritize the needs of the tenants. Thank you for your question.
If I may speak a little bit more to the policy of community land trusts, this is, I think, a very promising avenue forward when it comes to building a scalable alternative to the current landlord-tenant relationship. The whole idea of community land trusts is that land and the houses built on them are held by a public nonprofit entity. So the incentive structure is simply not the same as the traditional corporate-owned landlord-tenant relationship. One of the great benefits of a community land trust is that when localities invest that money into that land trust, that money goes on to serve residents for generations to come. Take that in contrast to a voucher program, which is a great short-term and immediate relief for people who need housing, but that's a policy that needs to continuously be paid into without resolving the underlying issue that housing is simply too expensive. Now, Here in Urbana, there are, I see, very promising opportunities to establish a community land trust. To my knowledge and to the knowledge of other people I've spoken with, there are no existing community land trusts here in the city of Urbana. There is, however, a thriving housing cooperative community. It's a different sort of structure. It's largely owned by nonprofits and paid for by the individuals living within the buildings, whereas a community land trust would receive investment from outside the people living in the buildings and would have a greater mandate to serve the community broadly. The state of Illinois has passed laws that clearly define how a community land trust is supposed to be governed. It's a tripartite governing structure where the board overseeing the property is comprised of people living inside the building, community members living outside the building, and a third party, just any sort of community institution. So I see that as being a very promising path forward in the event that rent control cannot be passed. I will say, however, I do want to emphasize the great benefits of a rent control program. It costs nothing. It does not cost money to any localities to implement rent control, and it is a way of immediately stopping the escalation of rent prices.
All right, thank you. Any more questions, thoughts, concerns?
Just
Go ahead,
very
Mary Alice.
quickly, yeah, so a couple of things. I think you referenced it. Urbana does have a very strong tenant rights law. Some of the things that you listed here are actually in our rules in terms of when you can enter and so forth. I find it interesting to talk about the cost because one of the complaints that we get up here at City Council is the cost of property tax, right? Property tax keeps going up, which means landlords have to raise the rent. Insurance keeps going up. So I think if to really kind of attack this problem, we have to look at it from multiple angles because it's not just landlords wanting to make as much money as they want to make. They need to make money in order to keep it together, right? Keep everything upkeep. So I just want to caution you and say I understand where you're coming from, but we also have to have a larger conversation with the different viewpoints.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are all in agreement that there is no one single policy solution to the affordability crisis of housing. We are here advocating for one of the many solutions. I do think, though, that the passing down of costs is absolutely a concern that must be taken into account. And we should also take into account that those costs are being passed down and profits are still being made. Right, those costs are not cutting into the bottom lines of the big capital interest groups and the big capital firms that are buying out entire neighborhoods. And so I think that we also need to take aim at that fundamental part, that extra bit of money that they're taking in from rent that is not going to taxes or insurance or maintenance or building upkeep and so on. That money is being used to lobby against us to put these sorts of rent control bans into place in the first place.
I would also like to add, I would love to see a local initiative to create more transparency for how these landlords' business practices actually run. Like, I would love to see their budget, these big conglomerates who are, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 off the top of my head who run maybe 90% of the properties in Champaign-Urbana that are rented. So I would love to know how much of that is actually cutting to their bottom line, because I agree with Erie, it's not, because we have evidence that they're able to continue buying up more properties without a problem, despite the fact that they are not run well, they're poorly maintained, their residents are not happy, I think the math would be quite interesting to see. And speaking in terms of actual practical solutions, though, is there a way to hold landlords more accountable for the actual business practices that they're holding? So if property tax is an issue for them, then, they can publish their whole budget sheet, and I'd love to see that.
All right. Thank you all. All right, next is council input and communication. Are there any council members who'd wish to provide input? Mary Ellis.
Yeah, I just wanted, I think Claudia's in the audience. I wanted to thank her. We have something on the consent agenda, so I'm not able to say something at that time, but she did provide to City Council some of the rationales and some of the information that I had been asking about, so I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Grace?
Thank you. I want to say thanks for everyone who provided their input and for the presentation just now. Thank you for that. Also on the consent agenda, since we don't have comment period there, I wanted to say how much I appreciate the community services grants and all of the organizations who submitted applications for that and the staff and volunteers for reviewing them. I was very fortunate to be able to be on that search committee again this year and definitely always find it an honor and very interesting to see what's going on with these community organizations. So appreciate that, and I hope to see that we can continue increased funding for those. Obviously bummed that we didn't increase it in this current budget period, and I hope that this council and the city can keep in mind having funding for those for future years. Same with the Sun Grant, Sustaining Urbana Neighborhoods. I cried reading those applications. They were really beautiful, all the wonderful things that people were doing in the community for gardening, for supporting community, for local food, and big sad that it's not continued. So I hope it can in the future. I really hope that we can get to a discussion on surveillance oversight ordinance tonight. I would really love if we could have a vote in July. I have already asked the clerk to put it on the on item of business for the committee of the whole coming up and then council meeting. Don't know if we'll meet all these weeks in July, but I really hope so. That will probably be the end of my time on council. I'll have some more updates and some more words to say, but I'll probably be here through the end of July. Have been working on this ordinance for 2 years. It's been 5 years in the making. It's been on the council agenda for 1 year and 7 months. And I would really hope that we could finally just take a vote on it, and I would really love to see that passed while I'm still here on council. And if anyone's interested in taking this place in Ward 6, I'm sure there'll be more information to follow in the months on how to apply for that. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Verdell?
Just want to say thank you for that presentation. You know, I agree with you. It is, I think it's very unethical for corporations, especially corporations that are out of town or even out of state, that come in, especially to college towns like Urbana, and buy up all of our property just to make a profit. You know, there's one word that I didn't hear that to me sums this whole thing up, and that's greed. It's greed. You know, everyone wants to make a dollar. You know, I think we need rent control. I think greed is what has caused homelessness to skyrocket. I think, unfortunately, in this country, we no longer care about our neighbor. We care about a dollar. And we wonder why, as a nation, we are in a moral decline. You know, what happened to love thy neighbor? What happened to being the country for hope and opportunity? You know, instead of we've become a nation of abuse. We've become a nation of division. And unfortunately, it's our most vulnerable and our hardworking blue-collar workers that feel the brunt of it. And so I seek that, you know, this council and this city of Urbana, that we continue to lead from the front and do the uncomfortable things to make sure our constituents, you know, have the basic rights to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right. With no further council input, we will move on to unfinished business. To consider ordinance number 2026-05-013, an ordinance approving a preliminary and final development plan for a planned unit development at 413 to 419 West Main Street. Plan case number 2519-PD-25. Are there any presenters or anyone coming up? Seeing none.
Mr. Mayor, there's no reintroduction of the item at this time. However, I do want to mention that the developers are present in the audience.
Okay. Did you guys want to say anything, or you just want to? No pressure. All right. All right. Is there a motion?
I would move approval of ordinance number 2026-05-013, an ordinance approving a preliminary and final development plan for planned unit development at 413 to 419 West Main Street, plan case number 2519-PUD-25.
All right, motion made by Wilkin. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Hersey. All right, is there any discussion? Mary Alice.
Raise my hand really high here. So a couple of things. We've heard from a lot of different people throughout our community. We've heard from people in the audience. I know that I've been in meetings and phone calls and so forth with people who are quite concerned. So I want to kind of break this down a little bit into affordable housing. So we'll talk about that for a moment. Right now, I believe, and the people who own it could correct me if I'm wrong, there's 8 current apartments. Is that correct, in those 2 buildings? I believe there's 8. Okay, all right, so there's at least 4. We'll say 6 to 8, okay? There's 6 to 8. So we have 6 to 8, we have 6 to 8 apartments that might not be really, really affordable, but are going to be certainly lower rent than what is going to be in this new building, right? Okay, I don't think anybody can argue with that. So if we think about building, and they will come, I think a lot of gentrification, right? Where people came in and bought up properties in some of the older neighborhoods and rehabbed them and basically made people cost out of the neighborhood. Like something that's very similar here, right? If we're taking away these 6 to 8 affordable housing, I'm going to put a little asterisk on affordable because I don't know how affordable they are, but they're definitely more affordable than the ones that are going to be built. I think it's quite clear cut in terms of, does this meet that housing need? I just looked up the percentage of home ownership in Urbana, 37%. There's 37%, which means way over 50% are actual rentals. I walk the neighborhood a lot. I'm usually on campus. I walked around a little bit and I saw 5 for rent signs in August in West Urbana and the state streets. Is it a tight market? Maybe. We're getting close to August when everything turns over, right? But are you able to rent within these neighborhoods? Yeah, you are able to rent in these neighborhoods. So there's a lot of people who very eloquently went down all of these points, but I just want to say to my fellow council members, there's 2 basic things that this boils down to. The first one, this is a PUD, and there are requirements in the zoning law in what qualifies you for a PUD. And one of those things is a public amenity. And there's no question in the staff's reports, in all of the different presentations, there is not a public amenity. Number 1. Number 2, the comprehensive plan, which is supposed to dictate to us exactly how we make these decisions. Does this fit with the comprehensive plan? And the answer is no. And it's not just me. It's the staff report that's saying this does not meet neighborhood 1. So I think, to me, this is a very clear answer. It doesn't mean that we can't build in downtown. There is downtown property. There are places in downtown that we can build this type of building can be in. I'm not saying not in my backyard. I'm saying let's look at the plan that we have for our neighbors. What if we said to our community in terms of what we are going to allow to be built, how we're going to make our decisions? If we can't adhere to that, all right.
Anyone else? Grace.
Yes, I have a couple questions, a couple proposed conditions to amend, and then I did want to just follow up on some of the previous comments. I saw some staff back there maybe having thoughts on some of the comments about public amenity. Is it the position of city staff that the right-of-way along Boneyard Creek is the public amenity offered in this PUD?
Yes, that's one of the public amenities.
Could you tell us others, if there are others?
It's also a unique development, qualifies under that definition. And yes, the public amenity would be unlocked with access to that 20-foot easement.
Is it unique development because of the floodplain?
That's correct.
Thank Thank you. Just wanted to have those kind of facts from different perspectives. Cool. Thank you. And then also I've had a nice conversation with the developers and appreciated some of their openness, willingness for some proposed conditions that I do plan to propose and have checked with them ahead of time. But there is another one that was brought up tonight about parking. So I wanted to ask you all if you already had a plan for semi-permeable pavement in the parking area, or if that were something that was doable. And if you're willing to do a verbal answer, and if you could come to one of the microphones so everyone online can hear.
You mind if I adjust this?
Yep, sure. You can also take it off if you'd like, or point it up.
Rock star. All right. We have not looked at that as a possibility, and I'm not saying that it can't be done. There were specifics with that parking lot meeting the floodplain requirements. So all of that has been engineered. What we're applying for has been engineered through to meet all the floodplain requirements. So we've met that. So there's no water issues based on what we've submitted. That makes sense?
Yes, but you're not sure if the parking lot pavement is designed
No,
specifically
it is
for
not
the
currently
floodplain.
designed that way, no.
Okay, but my understanding that the building is, right? The building is elevated for water to move under the building itself, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sharice?
You can stand back up. So, just some of the issues that I have. Okay, a lot of people have talked about affordable housing and so on and so forth, and I know that this isn't about affordable housing. But I do, and I am thinking in terms of an amendment to divide the preliminary from the final. I think the city should have more say on some level. I have already gone through in my ward somebody doing preliminary and final, and we didn't like any of it. And I do believe that this PUD would be helpful, but I still think that the city needs to have that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, as far as not necessarily making it affordable housing, but assisting. I've been listening to different ways that states that have a ban on rent control can locally make something more affordable. And one of those things is that if the developer would be willing to have a percentage of the space be affordable, meaning no more than 30% of a person's salary would that person pay. And you'd have a certain percentage, 10%. In this building, it would be like 3 apartments where people would not have to pay more than 30% of their salary. And I'd like for us to be able to have that discussion, if that's not too much.
I've had this discussion with Ms. Wilkins, Grace Wilkins, and we have agreed to, I believe we said 4 units, but I don't even know that we came to an agreement on a number, but we agreed to have a few units be held back for affordable housing that would meet that criteria of affordable housing. We already rent to tenants on Main Street who are using vouchers. So this is not unfamiliar to us, and we're not, we're for it. So.
I just want you to be able to say something like that on the public record, and that's why I said you could stand back up. So
there it is.
But because that's not something that I had heard before, but that kind of agreement or would be very helpful for, I think, many people that are hoping to be able to do that. Now, you can sit back down.
May I answer your question regarding the preliminary versus the final? So,
Yeah.
so we had two separate planning teams that have nearly, this was nearly unanimously approved by the planning. And there was two separate teams because Miss Olivia had come in and we had already worked with one team, and then we worked with the second team, and both of those supported this as being an ideal location for something like this, as a transition between downtown and the west, far west Urbana, the more historic area, because it's right across from an apartment building that's 3 times the size is what we're proposing. And it backs right up to Springfield Avenue, which that's zone business. And so it just transitions nicely, and that's one of the reasons we chose it, other than the fact that the land's just sitting there useless.
And I don't disagree. What some people call green space, in my neighborhood, it's called blight. And I would really prefer that green space be used to house some people, if at all possible. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that we're not pricing people out of a market that is much needed in this town. And as I've said before, my ward has already gone through the preliminary and the final at the same time, and it did not bode well for our neighbors or my neighborhood. And to answer a question or something that was put forth by someone, I have lived my whole life in an R2 neighborhood that had a bunch of multiple units. I was surrounded by it. It did not bother me. It did not hurt me. I had a trailer park on one side, the project on the other. So I was not at all harmed by that. It's about how you bring up your babies and how that's going to affect anything. So anyway, it's one of those things where I don't see this being a harmful thing to the neighborhood. I was raised in such a neighborhood here in Urbana, by the way. For those of you that don't know, I'm born, bred, and everything here in Urbana. So what I do want to understand and what I just wanted to know is if you were open to suggestions from us, council, staff. I know you guys have done all your due diligence, okay? But every now and again, there is something that I'm sure that we might see that you won't see. And I just want to know that you're open to a suggestion that something that may not, I can't tell you how many times somebody has told me since I've been on this city council, I didn't think of it that way. So I would really hope that you would be open to that.
That's possible. We're limited on what we can change.
I know.
Based on the flood design and also the building itself. So to go back and redo that.
Well, I'm not saying go back and redo that, but if there is a go back and redo that, you might consider going back and redoing.
I'm not sure because
it depends on what it is. I know it's all.
We have quite of an investment up to this point.
And for me, it's all open, but it's just a matter of some things. That's all I'm asking.
Sure.
Okay.
May I sit down, please?
Yes, you may sit.
Grace.
Sorry, I do have my comments and proposed conditions, but I didn't know if you were willing to come back up one more time. We'll have you up and down. I was wondering first, just question if you had any response to some of the concerns that have been expressed. And I know in a phone call we've shared a little bit about your background, that y'all are local. You're not these out-of-state multi-conglomerate developers and landlords. I don't know if you could just address some of those concerns, share a little bit about you all and your plan and vision here.
Sure. DMCB Properties is Derek, Melissa, Caleb, Brashear. I mean, this is DMCB Properties. She was born here. I've lived here since 1990, went to school here at the university and work here locally. And we've developed smaller properties on campus years ago, and we've since moved on to other things, but we still are in real estate. My wife's still a broker here locally, and we are always looking to take opportunity, even when we were working on in more of the campus area, what is not being utilized, what's not working, and what does no one else want, and how can we make that, how can we improve that? How can it be a benefit to the community? And we just saw this as an opportunity. 2 empty lots, kind of a rundown apartment house, and the extra house on the east side was just recommended so that we could actually do the PUD. We had enough land space to make it all work out, have the parking that was required, and be able to recoup some of the costs of needing to go up in order to afford the flood certifications that were necessary, and other expenses being in a floodplain. So yes, we're excited. We think it's a great opportunity for the city. I think there are a lot of benefits, direct and indirect, especially, and I think one of the biggest ones for me was it's going to add 50 to 60 people within walking distance to downtown Urbana. That's shops, businesses. They're going to have people walking around, spending money, hopefully. And so it's going to increase the livelihood of downtown Urbana. So that's what we liked about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Perdell? Oh, sorry. Were you done, Grace? Yeah. All right, Perdell.
First of all, thank you for everyone who's coming out and spoken, whether in for or in opposition. We appreciate your voice. But the city of Urbana, for me, I played basketball in Champaign, but I am from Urbana as well. But I think for far too long, talking with my older generation as well, I think the city is kind of buckled under the pressure of kind of wanting to keep the neighborhoods as is. And ultimately, we have lost out on growing and adding to our beautiful town. I believe that we have missed out on, many U of I professionals and small families wanting to live here who don't want to live in Champaign. So instead, they go to Monticello's or Muhammad's or places like that instead of being here locally. We continue to pour money into saving things that, ultimately, they're never going to be fully fixed. And we have neglected to do necessary things that can contribute to the income for the city of Urbana so that Urbana can continue to be socially accepting place that we all love to be in. This is not being anti-historic. I have a historical home. I actually love historic and older constructions because they are unique. And it's hard to find anything that's being built new that compares. But for me, this specific location is replacing 2 worn down houses in an empty space. I've go by there quite a bit recently because I want a non-biased opinion. I just want to drive by as a new person. What does it look like? What does it look like? I've seen broken windows. I've seen it being a breeding ground for trash. And for me, with downtown being less than a block away, I think this project can actually be a very warm welcome to the downtown corridor. I don't believe that this specific location really encroaches on the historic Main Street. You got to think about it. It's on the same block as downtown treasures like Strawberry Fields and the old Firestone Tire House place. So for me, it's hard for me to say that this is not part of the downtown corridor. And I understand previous plans that were made by previous administrations. I, unfortunately, was not a part of those decisions. But if I were, I would have argued that this plot should remain open because of its proximity to downtown. with all that being said, listen, our world is ever changing. And I feel that Urbana has to, in some way, change with it, or we'll be caught left behind. This vote is not a vote against the people, but for me, this vote is rather a vote for the future of Urbana, for the future generations, so they can have somewhere to stay. And they're not taking on projects like I just did these last 5 years of renovating a beautiful old home. And I don't think that I don't think it has to be this or this. I think it can be this project and that project and the affordable housing project. We just heard a great presentation. We're in a crisis. We need housing, and whoever can afford different levels, we need to be able to provide that housing for every level. So with that being said, my personal vote on this would be a yes.
All right, is there any further discussion? Yes, Mary Alice.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some insight. I've been through the PUD process a couple of times. There was a PUD that failed on Lincoln, 600 block of Lincoln. One of the applicant had said that the housing that was on there was too expensive for them to renovate. They really wanted to build this big building. It didn't pass, and guess what happened? Like, it's going on right now. You can go down Lincoln. They're renovating those 2 duplexes on Lincoln that they said couldn't be renovated. So another PUD that I was involved with, and it came back several times, but the first time, and this goes to the public amenity. So I agree that the staff did say that the only public amenity is the Boneyard, let's see here, stipulation of the Creekway permit, and the applicant has dedicated a 20-foot parcel of land. The reason I bring this up is because, you know, that is kind of one of the questions here. Do we consider that a public amenity? And so on one of the first PUDs that I worked on, the public amenity that was being offered was 2 benches and a table. And for that, they wanted to go from 35 feet to 54 feet. And the neighborhood said, that's not a public amenity. It's not something we want. It's not something that really gives the developer the right to go from 35 to 54 feet for a table and a couple of benches. So I say to you, I don't think this is a type of public amenity that I would expect in a PUD. I would expect something that would be available to the public. And in some regard, having a bench and a table is more available than having the dedication of the Boneyard Creek way. So I just wanted to provide my experience in the past PUD process. And certainly, Verdell was not here when we passed the comprehensive plan. However, it was passed with this mayor, so it did pass within the past year. I think it passed in July or August, so we're almost coming up on a year. And so, yeah, that's my last thought.
I'll go Stephanie and then Verdell.
So, I want to say I do appreciate that the developers have shown some willingness to compromise, particularly around the acceptance of housing vouchers and doing things that better reflect the character of Urbana. At the same time, I want to make sure that these are not just part of tonight's conversation. I would like clarity as to how we make sure that those things are actually in writing and a part of the conditions of this approval. That is extremely important because, you know, we can have a conversation and then those things not actually show up because, oh, wow, we ended up renting all those places. And not that I think that you aren't good on your word. You know, you look like a person that's good on your word. No, I'm just saying, I just want to know how do we make sure that that's actually part of the proposal and not just some fluffy words.
So there can be an amendment to the motion to introduce conditions. That's the responsibility of the council members to bring forward. That will codify the conditions.
Do we have to itemize or bullet point those conditions within the amendment, Olivia?
Yes, I think so. Yep. But first one would have to make an amendment.
Okay.
Like to make a proposal for amendment to add to the agreement that there will be housing vouchers presented or available to those who want to live in these apartments. I butchered
Law.
that. Okay.
It's state of Illinois law that you have to accept housing vouchers.
Okay.
So we know this, and I do know that this is state of Illinois law. I'm talking about making it, because there's also something that, even with the law, there are things that get around that make sure that those things are happening. And this is happening in every community. I know this. And so I want to know, how do we make sure that this is part of this property? That it's just like we have specific places that are all low income. We have specific places that are more people being pushed out because of how high the rents are. So we're talking about different things. How do we make sure?
So correct me, whoever, if I'm wrong, but I think the amendment would state, would add language essentially setting aside a number of units specific to
Yes.
affordable housing.
That's all I'm saying.
Grace.
Thank you. If I may speak to that, that is one of the amendments that I had planned to propose. I have some others as well. I've been emailing back and forth, some through staff and a call with the developers directly, trying to figure out those exact things. How can we have some units that are designated affordable, which was the first ask that the answer was, unfortunately, that's not part of the market rate model for this development. And then the next question was, what about a minimum number of vouchers and a good faith effort? And I was very encouraged that the developers did agree to that and said, yeah, sure, 4 or 5 units, make a good faith effort that will have at least that many units held by people with vouchers. Then subsequent information that I found out, which I was suspecting unfortunately might be the case, that it's likely that the cost of rent for those units won't jive well with the voucher system, that the gap between affordable and the market rent will be too great, that the vouchers won't be able to be used there if it's not the HUD fair market rent rate cost. And so that's why I unfortunately was kind of retracting that one, because I don't want to have a condition that they're not able to meet for legal reasons and things outside of their control. But I was very encouraged that they were very willing, that they do accept vouchers, which they have to, yes, as we said, legal obligation, you can't not accept them, but that they were willing to make a good faith effort to proactively advertise and kind of seek out that number. But unfortunately, I don't know that that will be possible depending on what their cost of rent is. If I may say that other amendments that I would like to propose, if there are seconds on these, we can obviously take them one at a time, but just a heads up, that they've also agreed to at least 6 months' notice to existing tenants prior to their need to vacate the properties. And second one, to maintain the existing trees on the site wherever possible. Yes, so I would move to amend this PUD to add a condition that the existing tenants would have at least 6 months' notice before their need to vacate the properties.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Wu?
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin?
Yes.
Passes. No Chris? No Chris? Okay, all right, just double checking. All right, so that, that amendment passes. Grace, what do you got?
Wanted to propose another amendment to the PUD to add a condition that the developers maintain the existing trees on site wherever possible.
All right, motion made by Grace.
Actually, can I add to that? If I would like to see if the trees either remain on site, or if they have to be torn down, that they are repurposed for the project. So if we cut down a tree, and we need wood for the Boneyard Creek development area, that it could be used in some way, whether it's for a bench, whether it's for a chair, whether it's for something. I just don't want to see the trees get cut down and then tossed in a wood chipper.
Could be used for mulch.
Or it could be used for mulch, I guess, yeah. I just want to see the trees repurposed for the site. That's the purpose I want.
If I may, I do like the spirit of that, but I don't know that I don't know all the details of how practical or possible that may be, and that the developers had agreed to maintaining the ones where possible. I'm not sure if you have thoughts on utilizing that lumber, and also the conditions, like would chipping it and using it as mulch on the property count? Like, I guess there's a lot of unknowns there.
I just wanted it repurposed on the property. Wood chip, use it for a bench, something.
I think we have to consider the cost of something like that and what that would add.
Go ahead, sir.
So the trees that would be taken down, and I believe I counted upwards of 16. I'm not an arborist. I couldn't tell you what one of those trees were. So I don't know if they're actually usable for things like building, or it's just a wide variety of trees. And some of them could be junk trees, what's often referred to as junk trees. So, but the city arborist is welcome to come out, and we can take a look at those trees and see if there's that, if any of that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll say, if we'll keep the amendment that Grace is putting forth, we can have that conversation to see what's possible. Grace, go for it.
If I will, I take the friendly amendment, hasn't been a second yet, but I would amend it to add a condition to maintain existing trees on site wherever possible, and make a good faith effort to explore on-site use of the trees that are removed. Is that reasonable on your end with the thing?
I'll second that one.
All right, motion made to keep the trees on site that are existing, with a good faith effort to utilize the trees that are no longer in use for forward development. Made by, I am so sorry, guys. Moved by Gray, seconded by Jones. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That amendment passes. Now we are back to the original motion at hand with the amendments added to. Is there any discussion around that? Seeing none, clerk, do we need a roll?
Councilmember Wu,
No.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
All right, thank you, and that passes. All right. Where are we at? All right, next we have reports of standing committee, which there are none, so we will move on to the committee of the whole. Yeah, we're past that, sir. Thank you. Next, we will have the committee of the whole. Councilmember Wilkin.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole, presenting for James, who covered for me as chair last week, I present the consent agenda, ordinance number 2026-07-019, an ordinance amending the Urbana zoning ordinance, amend Article 2 and Article 8 of the Urbana zoning ordinance to bring requirements for parking into compliance with People Over Parking Act. Resolution approving an intergovernment agreement with the Board of Trustees, the University of Illinois, concerning certified housing inspections, term of 2026 to 2029. Resolution approving and authorizing exemption of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center, UC IMC Summer for Youth. Also, resolution number 2026-07-027R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, the Land Connection Winter Token Match at CU Winters Farmers Market. And resolution number 2026-07-028R, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, the Land Connection Neighbor Food Bucks. And resolution number 2026-07-029R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant, the Land Connection WIC Senior FMNP match at Urbana Farmers Market. And resolution number 2026-07-030R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Habitat for Humanity, Champaign County Financial Capability and Stability Program. And resolution number 2026-07-031R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, persons assuming control of their environment, Inc., PACE, Inc., rent and utility assistance program. And resolution number 2026-07-032R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, public benefits navigation, applications, and enrollment services. And resolution number 2026-07-033R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, Immigrant Population Services. And resolution 2026-07-034R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club Rides Program. And resolution number 2026-07-035R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, UCSD number 116, Urbana Middle School Splash on Careers Program. And resolution number 2026-07-036R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Crisis Nursery Safe Children's Program. And resolution number 2026-07-037R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Eastern Illinois Food Bank, City of Urbana Food Fund. And resolution number 2026-07-038R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Angels Youth Center Program. And resolution number 2026-07-039R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, the Center for Youth and Family Solutions Counseling Program. And resolution number 2026-07-040R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Rape Advocacy Counseling and Education Services, Survivor Services. And resolution number 2026-07-041R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, Courage Connection Housing Stabilization for Domestic Violence Survivors. And lastly, resolution number 2026-07-042R, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, community services grant agreement, East Central Illinois Refugee Mutual Assistance Center, the Refugee Center, supporting immigrant families.
Second.
Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes. On the regular agenda, on behalf of Committee of the Whole, I present ordinance number 2026-07-020, an ordinance amending the Urbana zoning ordinance, amend Article 2 and Article 8 of the Urbana zoning ordinance to lower minimum parking requirements for commercial workshops, plan case number 2526T-26.
Second.
Motion made by Grace, seconded by Sharice. Is there any discussion? Goodness, I'm so sorry, y'all. Motion made by Grace, seconded by Sharice. Is there any further discussion? I'm so sorry. All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
All right, that passes as well.
And lastly, on the regular agenda, on behalf of Committee of the Whole, I present Resolution Number 2026-07-026R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a subrecipient agreement, Community Services Grant Agreement, Solo Grazia Farm, Free Friday Market, and Gardener Outreach and Education.
Second.
Motion made by Wilkins, seconded by Jones. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Cockrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
That motion passes. All right, now we move on to reports of special committees, which there are none. So next is reports of officers. Are there any reports? None. All right, with no further reports, we will move on to discussion regarding the surveillance ordinance. Councilmember Wilkin, I know you have a presentation, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was trying to pull it up. I don't know if someone could help me. I was struggling to find where I inserted my thing on the screen. Thank you. We get started with discussion? Well, it's the chair, but is that okay? Yeah, is that okay? Mayor Pro Tem step in? Is that a thing?
I'll take over the chair, and the chair recognizes Grace.
Thank you very much. As I said in public comment, I'm probably not long for my time left on council. Would really love if this ordinance were able to be passed. We've talked about it for 1 year and 7 months officially on the council agenda. It's been drafting for the past 2 years. It's been in the works for the past 5 years since it was first brought to attention that there are no policies regarding approval, oversight, or reporting for surveillance in the city of Urbana. So what I was hoping for this discussion is to kind of give a refresher and kind of an overview, especially for some of our newer council members, on what's proposed in the ordinance as it stands in your packet on version 8.2. And then also I have just a few slides from the kind of response given in April from the police department on some of their proposed recommendations and that kind of side-by-side proposed changes. And hoping that next Committee of the Whole and Council, we can take some kind of amendment votes, decide majority council which way we want to go on some of the remaining issues that are still kind of up in the air, and then finally pass this thing. And then I think the real work begins where we actually have the policy for all of these things and start annual reports and arguably the real stuff starting from there. So as most of our ordinances, the whereas clauses state some basic stuff about being a sanctuary city, the 10 shared principles, some of the past issues related to surveillance, and that there kind of should be and is not any policy or public process to acquire surveillance technologies. So then into the actual meat of the ordinance, section 1 is just the purpose to provide transparency, oversight, and accountability regarding the acquisition and use of surveillance technology and the data it collects by the city of Urbana. And remaining issue is if it applies to all city departments or just the police department. Section 2 kind of lays out the actual approval process for technology, where there would be a proposed use report and use policy, at least 30 days public input period prior to a council vote, and that technology could be reassessed not more than once a year or under certain conditions that were added in the section C, just to kind of be sure that we're not reevaluating things unnecessarily often. Section 3 just says the standard for approval, looking at public safety concerns, benefits, and alternative methods available. Section 4 covers reporting and approval of existing surveillance technologies, so ones that are already in use. We would have a similar time period for approval and public notice of the proposed policies. This one would have 120 days from the passing of this ordinance for council to go through and approve all the things that we're currently using. And yeah, I'm down if you want to stop along the way if there's questions or things.
Mary Alice, did you have?
I just saw something that we didn't update, but that's okay. I can talk to you offline about it.
Okay. Yes, thank you. And preface that too. Happy to talk with anyone about this, especially other council members and newer ones. If you have any questions, thoughts, this is by no means my thing, but I do know it intimately well, just as far as questions or updates and things. Section 5 is about contractual agreements involving surveillance technology, that there can't be NDAs that kind of supersede some of the transparency that would be set forth in this ordinance. Also being sure that we still comply with FOIA. We don't enter into any contracts that share the city's data for sale with non-government entities, pretty much saying we won't sell the surveillance data that we may collect. Section 6 is disaster circumstances, meaning that if there were the way it's written here, if there were an extreme disaster as defined by Illinois law for disaster circumstances that were deemed to meet that level by the mayor, then there would be an exception for a department to use surveillance technology that was not approved. Either it hadn't been considered or it had been considered and it was voted no. That they could use that for these disaster circumstances for not more than 30 days, no more than 2 consecutive periods, so no more than 60 days total. And then after the end of the disaster, the department would present to council some of the reports and policies kind of after the disaster has subsided. Section 7 is about destruction of improperly collected data, just trying to avoid a loophole that we could say, well, we use this technology that we weren't authorized to use, but now we have this evidence and we're going to use it against you in a criminal proceeding. So this is just some of that language. The city attorney, I believe, has gone through this version, was the proposed version from the city attorney, and there's some other updates we'll get to in the recommendations. But again, lots of legal language, pretty much just saying we're not going to do things improper and then use it after the fact. That we would assess if it needs to be kept as a record. We won't use it in a prosecution, and we'll delete or destroy the evidence when permissible by law. Section 8 is about reporting and oversight, that the CPRB, other thing in the area, shall or may review surveillance technology, annual reports, use report and use policy. As written in 8.2, it is a shall review, but there is an exemption here that if the CPRB is not able to review the reports or policies in a reasonable time frame due to logistical factors, the department will present the reason for lack of CPRB review, but it can still come to council. So if there was not a quorum at CPRB, that wouldn't stop anything from coming to council. Also that the CPRB and HRC may hear complaints within their existing authority. Doesn't need to be said, we could remove it, but I think it's helpful to state it. And then also upon request, members of those commissions and city council shall be able to review information relevant to the enforcement of this ordinance. Section 9 was just some of the legal stuff about saying that if we still follow all of the state acts, like freedom from drone surveillance, protecting household privacy acts, things like that, that we're not overriding any of those state or federal acts by our local ordinance. And then Section 10 is the definitions, which are still some things to be decided about disaster versus exigent circumstances. We talk about what surveillance technology is and have some examples that align with a lot of other cities that have already passed similar ordinances to this. And then there's also examples of what we are not considering surveillance technology, so not like routine office hardware, body-worn cameras, that's already exempt under Illinois law. And there's a whole list of things that we are saying specifically not included as surveillance technology. And then this definitions also outline what would be included in the use report, also in the use policy, and in the annual report. What kind of information would be included there and made available to the public and council and have a vote to approve. And then I have the side-by-side thing next, but happy to stop there after throwing a lot at you at once.
Are there any questions for Grace? Comments? Thoughts? All right.
You're gonna send us the draft?
I can send the Word doc or PDF separate if that's helpful. It is also what's in the packet.
I didn't see anything.
So at the very end of the packet for tonight is version 8.2 that was just up on the
Can
screen.
you send it as a Word document?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I can definitely send the Word document and this document from UPD, just so you have it all handy in one spot to consider.
Okay, I appreciate that too.
So I just took the document that was titled Surveillance Ordinance Side-by-Side Comparison Document from UPD, I believe, that was given to us in April. And so I just kind of took some screenshots to put them in slides so that we could have them there to think about. And again, I hope that this is just kind of information to help us refresh it and consider so that the next few weeks we could actually start making some votes and passing some things. But in addition to some of the bigger things, like does this apply to just the city or all departments or just the police department, a few of the definitions. But in addition to that, here are some additional proposals from UPD. Section 1, they want to add to the purpose that nothing in this ordinance is intended to restrict or delay lawful, real-time law enforcement decision-making in situations involving public safety, emergency response, or active investigations. And on these slides, the things in red are what are suggested additions from UPD. Section 4B3 suggested that if council has not voted to approve or deny the continued use of the existing technology within the specified time frame, the city department may continue to use its surveillance technology while the council approval process is pending, provided the city department has provided all documents and information required for this ordinance, and no violation of law or policy has been identified concerning its ongoing use of the technology. And I think basically the rationale for this was that they didn't want to have operational issues if things were delayed in council, which the passage of this ordinance after a year and 7 months has showed that sometimes the process can take a while. So they just wanted to be sure that if things were taking a while to get a vote through council, they weren't impacted by not being able to use that technology just because we were procedurally taking longer. And then they've proposed that section 6 be labeled exigent circumstances, but I believe all the rest of it was the same. I think you all have this side by side, and I'll share it out again. Feel free to check for yourselves, but when I checked it, the wording that they proposed is exactly what's in disaster circumstances. So I think they're not proposing any actual changes, just changing the word disaster to exigent. But the more important change would be changing the definitions of disaster circumstance to exigent circumstances. So my understanding in section 6, they're not proposing any change to the actual process, that they can use it for 30 days and then they report afterwards. What they are proposing to change is changing that higher disaster circumstance that's an Illinois emergency management kind of level to exigent circumstances, which is used in the police world a little bit differently. That just right here means that the Urbana police chief or their designee's good faith and reasonable belief that an emergency involving danger of death, physical injury, or significant property damage or loss, similar to those that would render it impractical to obtain a warrant, requires the use of the surveillance technology or the surveillance data it provides. The use of surveillance technology in exigent circumstances shall not infringe upon an individual's right to peacefully protest or exercise their lawful or protected constitutional rights. So that's something for us to discuss as council, that difference between definitions of disaster versus exigent circumstances, and what is that threshold to use unapproved surveillance technology. Then in this side-by-side, I was a little confused because there's two section 7s here. This one that's in black and underlined text is already in version 8.2. So I just have the little check here. That's already incorporated in 8.2. This was the recommended updates from the city attorney that are already incorporated. But there's another section 7 in this document that is in red text, and this is a proposed change from UPD. I was trying to understand, and I'm still sure if I'm not entirely clear if this was working with the city attorney and to what level this collaboration happened. But this recommendation that just changes procedurally a little bit how this section works. I think the spirit of it is the same, but they want to add specifically things that nothing in this section shall be interpreted to prohibit or discourage the collection of evidence by law enforcement officers acting in good faith within the scope of their duties and in accordance with applicable law. Also, they wanted to add that this evidence may be used for legitimate law enforcement purposes unless and until the city attorney determines such that such use would violate applicable law. They might have to explain some themselves, some of the rationale for the changes in here. Slash, do you have comments?
Just responding to what you said, I did review it and help assist them. You know, they articulated sort of the policy approach that they supported. The sort of high-level summary of the difference between the two sections is, I would say, the section in black and that's underlined, the first version of it is, I would say it's more front-end sort of prohibitive on the front end, sort of prohibition on the use or disclosure. And the other one is sort of, we would use it within the circumstances articulated unless we can't, essentially. Sort of two different ends of the same spectrum, both with an eye toward, not using it in sort of improper or illegal circumstances, but, I think the law enforcement interest is, if it's useful for legitimate purposes, they would want the ability and the flexibility to do that, as opposed to having it be more oriented toward we won't use it unless we have to. Essentially, it would be kind of the first version of it, I would say. That's not a super articulate way of saying it, but the nuances are in there. Happy to answer questions or talk individually about details of this if anybody has questions.
Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any other comments? All right, thanks. Oh, sorry, Stefan.
I want to better understand, and this has probably been talked about so many times, I want to better understand the CPRB.
In general, as a
commission? Is there, explain the purpose of that? Can you explain the purpose of that to me?
of their review.
Yeah, of that form of the process. Can you explain the purpose of that being part of the process?
Yes, the rationale in my mind is that this is a pretty common process. Like we saw the PUD and a lot of other things that come to council have gone through a commission beforehand, and they've already discussed it. It's another opportunity for the public to be aware of the issue and give their input, and then it comes to council with a recommendation from that commission. And I think that that's helpful as a council member when I see there's a zoning change and it passed by a unanimous vote on the plan commission, or maybe it didn't and it conflicts with staff recommendation. So I think this was just having that other process where you have a commission of our dedicated volunteers who work in this area to be able to review something and also to help the departments in a collaborative way. I think this was not meant to add more work for them, but to be a collaborative process where they can have some input and some guidance and help along the way with some of these policies before they come to council. Also, CPRB, to my understanding, has some different kind of confidentiality training, and anyone feel free to correct or clarify here, so that they can see more insight into the police department records, for example, than I think even council members or the general public, that they can see more kind of confidential information than any of us can.
So, I'm so sorry, just for clarification, that is in regard to CPRB oversees the use of tasers by police officers. So when they review any type of report, it is only in the dealings of tasers at this time.
Okay.
Unless there is a complaint from a resident, then they will work with our OHRE, which is Carla, in reviewing any misuse of force. But overall, they work with us to oversee the use of tasers.
Okay, so this would change it to them reviewing everything that comes up on surveillance, or would it stay with just the use of tasers? Is this changing that? I guess my thought is, I want to understand, is this to say that we are not capable of hearing it out and going through this ourselves before, instead of sending it to a review board? Is that what we're saying? Is it like we don't have the capability or capacity, or you know? And then I want to know what culturally relevant training does this team have? What other trainings do they have that make them more capable of doing this than us?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's because council's not capable or they're more capable. I think this is, like I said, the process with a lot of other things that go through a commission first. I mean, if that were the rationale, we could say, why do we even have commissions? But I think they're an important part of our city where we have volunteers who want to dedicate to a specific topic.
Like us,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, well, council is everything in the city. Versus there are committees that just focus on trees, just focus on zoning, just focus on community development, just on police oversight, that are more specialized. And as far as training, I think they do have some training. I'm not sure the extent of it. I'm not sure if it involves cultural sensitivity. But again, this would be a recommendation
Don't you think
vote.
that's important? Like cultural sensitivity, trauma-informed care. Like, I personally would feel more, I don't feel comfortable putting something like that in the hands of an outside organization. And then I know you were, as part of your, and I'm sorry you all, because y'all have probably went through this already several times, but you also mentioned that they have more access to police files. That actually makes it worse for me, because if a person has had more than one situation and they can look and say, oh, well, this person has done this so many times, so this time it's no different. You know what I mean? I feel like I would feel more comfortable it coming from this side than that, but I just want to understand it. That's my thing. I've never heard it before now, and I want to better understand it, and that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could be connected with people who are much more knowledgeable on the CPRB than myself. I have not been on that commission. I've interacted with them as a council person and as a member of the public, but I have not served on that commission, so I can't answer it as well as the commission members and the chair.
Okay.
I think would be happy to speak with you, and some of the staff. Said Carla Boyd oversees that commission, so I think there are people who will be much better equipped to answer some of those questions than myself.
So then I guess my question is, who made this recommendation? It didn't, because it had to be made by someone who was knowledgeable about the process, right?
Yes, this has come from, the CPRB was involved in this, and they've made an official statement and letter to council as a commission that they support their involvement in this role.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And then also just to clarify, reiterate that the CPRB would be a recommendation vote. It wouldn't be an end-all, be-all. It still comes to council for the final decision. It's just getting their input and collaboration with the city department before it comes to council.
Mary Alice.
I just wanted to add a little bit that all of our boards and commissions are set up through ordinances, and the CPRB, the Civilian Police Review Board, has certain criteria in terms of what they're supposed to do, and this is not part of it. So we would also have to update the CPRB. In my opinion, the main purpose of the CPRB is to hear complaints from the people if they feel that they've been treated poorly by the police department, right? That's kind of the main purpose. I can see where this is kind of a little bit like could potentially be alongside, but that's not currently the role of the CPRB, what's stated in here. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you, absolutely. And our city attorney, I believe, has or is willing to draft the necessary changes to the CPRB ordinance so that this could be implemented. Yes, head nods, we'll take, okay, yes, thank you. Some of these other definitions were already included. Number 15 here is already included in version 8.2. That's what the check is for. But then in red text, number 16, they also suggested that there be an exemption of surveillance technology does not include case-specific use of publicly accessible information like their LEADS database and some other national databases. Then also with the use report and the annual reports, there was a proposed suggestion to exempt sensitive surveillance technology information that would not be included in use reports. And their proposed definition of sensitive surveillance technology means any information about surveillance technology that, if publicly disclosed, could unreasonably expose or endanger city infrastructure or adversely impact the operations of city departments. This also includes information about surveillance technology for which public disclosure may otherwise be prohibited by law. And I have asked UPD, and they've said yes, but we are maybe follow up and get that unless you all have some updates. Ask them to provide some examples and non-examples of this, just like we did with surveillance technology, because I'm still having a hard time understanding what this means specifically and what it doesn't mean. And that's it.
All right. Is there any other questions, thoughts, additions? Grace, I know you agreed to everyone. If you could send even Stephanie and Verdell as well the Word version of that, I think will be good. All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, with no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned.